Okay, so it is 12 o'clock. We will officially start the YouTube live demo. The reason you're here, I have Jen from Miami. Yes, it's obviously gorgeous over there. Lucky you. We are going to do something that I am calling the Ugly Duckling Celebration. And I decided to call it that because the ugly duckling gets a lot of bad rap. It's just nobody wants an ugly duckling. Nobody cares for an ugly duckling. Everybody likes the white swan. I just feel the process is so important in appreciating the ugliness and embracing it. And what you call ugly might not actually be ugly for someone else. So I have learned that over the last 5 years in creating my art pieces, especially with the gel plate, that there's always going to be an ugly stage, an ugly phase. You will want to give up. You will not know what to do with it. You will want to either trash it or just set it aside, maybe to never look at it again. It's true of working artists, people like me who do it day in and day out. It's true of those who have not picked up a paintbrush in years and go back to their art. It's true of those who've never done any art ever in their lives. It's true for each one of us. It just looks different for each one of us. Hi, Lori, Southern California, another windy, gloomy day. Okay, so we have some gloom and doom. We have some sun. We have a good mix, I think, of all weather patterns going. So what I will do is I will turn my camera over. So this is, I haven't cleaned my table. I usually don't clean my table in between sessions. And what happened was this morning I had a one-on-one session with a lovely lady, and we started out with a sheet of paper. She was doing her own thing. I was doing my own thing. We started talking about what she felt was overwhelming for her and what felt like a block for her. And for her specifically, it was buying a lot of stuff but never using it. Like stencils, for example. She said she buys all these stencils and she's never used any. So I said, well, let's just start playing with stencils. She wanted to do acrylics, so I took out some acrylics as well. I see people still tuning in. Welcome, welcome. We're just getting started. I'm just kind of giving a brief overview of what I did this morning. Hello from White Rock, BC, Canada. Hi, Diana. Flute 117, I'm not sure who this is. Gloomy in New Jersey. Okay, we did a little bit of like finger painting. I did some journaling, wrote some words. I did some stenciling with her, showed her how different ways of stenciling add different effects, what other things you can do with a stencil besides just spreading acrylic paint through a sponge. And then this was a loose portrait that was done on the other side. Then I decided I was going to turn this into a zine because it wasn't making any sense to me and it was feeling too overwhelming, too red, too much to handle. And now I am transforming this one sheet of paper into something that I can send her, that she can have as a keepsake of our conversation, our time together this morning. I will write some things in here, some inspirational words for her. She's a journaler. She loves doing... Oh, Carol, it's you. All right, now I know who Flute 117 is. Welcome, Carol. So we talked a lot about a lot of things, and she loves poetry and she loves reading and writing. So I think I will turn this into something of a memoir of our time together and send this off to her, and then do something similar on the other side. So I want you to see that this is one sheet of paper. And as is, this is not a stellar portrait. This is not like something that I would frame and hang up on the wall, because for me, personally, I don't like it. But you as a viewer might say, hey, what's wrong with this? I love the colors. Or you might hate it just as much as I do. Either way, the point is, if you have a piece of paper that you've made something on and you don't want to keep it as is, there are other options besides trashing it. And one of them is to make it, cut it up. You can cut it up. You don't have to have this in a zine format. You could just cut it up and see different parts of it and do something different with them. Or you could make it into what I did, turn it into a book, and then see what that feels like. And that will feel different. I always struggle with this. I've made so many of these and I still to this day struggle with it. Because when you fold it up or you cut it up, it becomes a much smaller vignette. And then, you know, it's kind of like a playground again where you can do whatever. So, hi Loretta, welcome. It's just, you know, you have an eye there, but does it need to be an eye when you replay, when you kind of work on this? It doesn't. Does this need to be the hair? It doesn't have to be anything recognizable from its original format. It can be something completely different. It can be something completely unique. And it can be something that you actually cherish. And it's the same sheet of paper that you are going to discard, which is what I have a lot of. I have a lot of these little sheets of paper just lying around that I could easily discard, but I hold on to them because I know that once I start cutting them up, once I start collaging with them, once I start turning these into card fronts, it takes on its own life. So that's what I'm here to encourage you to do. And what I had asked you, I don't know if you saw the instructions, but I had asked if you could, if you were wanting to play alongside me today, bring some of these so-called discarded sheets and let's work on some of them, and I'll show you different techniques on what you can do. One thing might be to work with just a white colored pencil, or just with white acrylic paint, or just with a white acrylic pen, or just use a black Sharpie and make some patterns and then fill them up with other colors. But before we get to doing that, this is from the one-on-one. I need to send this to her. I might just show you a couple of things that we can do with this. But I also wanted to show you my journal. I was talking earlier about how my mood gets affected by the weather, and then it reflects in these pages. And sometimes I still distinctly remember this day. This was during COVID. This was early April 2020, and it was just gloom and doom everywhere. And I went through so many iterations in this. There's a lot of texture paste, there's stenciling, there's writing, there's watercolors, there's acrylic paint, there's the black glaze pen over here. There's just so much. And most of these journal pages are, I would say, 6 or 7 layers deep. And I just keep going and going. And every page is different. Every page is very, very representative of what I was feeling in the moment. There's die cuts. There's alcohol ink paintings in here. There's some gel plate printing in here. And I'm not showing you this journal to talk about mixed media art journaling in this session. I do have mixed media art journaling coming up next week. I'm doing a Zoom for the very first time with 5 people per Zoom for 2 days. But what I am trying to show you is you can take anything and turn it into something else. That really is the beauty of mixed media, and continuing to layer and continuing to play and continuing to answer every single what if that comes across your head. What if I did a purple here? Well, then do a purple there. What's stopping you? It's just paper, right? Every single one of these pages, I can tell you with 100% honesty, was not meant to be a certain way. None of these. I did not have an end goal in mind for any of these. I didn't have a vision in mind for any of these. And for those of you who have attended lives with me in the past, have seen my free flow kind of work, which is what I keep encouraging you to do, because there's no other better way of making art, in my opinion. It's all about letting your heart kind of guide you, and let just your hands be the vehicles that make it come true. Some of these, like this page, I remember was maybe 20 minutes. This was only 20 minutes. I remember Mira was sitting over here next to me, and we were talking about something, and I just started doing this because I needed to get some energy out. And that's, I feel like a 3-year-old sometimes, because that's what kids do. When kids need to let their energy out, they will just go run out, play, or the dog, the puppy goes, he gets the zoomies. For me, it's I need to do something with my hands. I need to create, and that is why I rely on my fingers. I'm just flipping through this as I'm talking, so you can see there's no one style. There's no one motif. There's no one, this is, me. It's all still me. And I encourage you to explore that and not get stuck up on doing just one thing, because you are not just one thing. You are a complex layer of many things. It's layers and layers. All of us are. We have our own personal experiences and our own insights into everything. We are who we are today because of everything that has happened cumulatively in our past. And that is what this is, I feel. It is a true reflection of me in various stages of my journey with art. And you see a page like this comes across where I was just testing my new pencils, and I don't want to do anything on this. I still haven't thought of doing, I'd actually done a poll about this page asking people what I should do. And some people had said do a silhouette, some had said to do negative color blocking. I haven't felt the urge to do anything with it. So this is how it shall be. Again, representative of what was happening that day. There was a mass shooting, and this is how I expressed myself. This is again finger painting. Challenged myself to not pick up the brush at all and just paint these flowers, flower fields with my fingers with acrylics. I haven't been trained in any form of art, so this is all just me exploring. This is all just me expressing myself, not being afraid. This is the next page, which I am going to use in our session on March 9, and on March 10 we'll do another page. That's the Zoom. I did put up links if anybody's interested in joining me in a Zoom class next week. But today, let's transform some of this stuff. So what I have, I will show you the supplies I have on hand, and you can maybe get some things if you want to. But what I may or may not end up using are these colored pencils. So these are Stabilo pencils. These are water-soluble crayons. They are a very, very critical part of my art journaling process. I always end up using them. They come in a set of 6 colors or 12 colors, I believe. And then these are Prismacolor pencils. These are wax-based, and I like them because they will go over very, very thick layers of things. So for example, I'm also teaching a class, the Badass Art Journal. I'm one of 16 people teaching that, and I'll show you what I'll be teaching in that session when my turn comes in May. This is the spread I will be taking you from start to finish. And the Prismacolor pencils are what I use. That was the only medium that went over all the layers of acrylic and oil pastels and other things that I had used on this page. So these come in handy, but the other pencils that I use for detail work, which I am not bringing out today, are the Faber-Castell pencils, and these are mostly for more fine details. These also have a sharper tip, and I like them for fine detailed work. My Posca markers are in here as well, which we may or may not use today, along with some of these glaze pens and my Sharpies. So I'm kind of surrounded by this stuff because my goal usually is to not get up from my table, and it kind of limits me. I don't reach for the wall behind me and grab everything. I feel even this is a lot, and we might not end up using most of it, but I'm just showing you what I have here in case that sparks ideas on what you might want to do today. And I just want to do a quick check because the chat is so quiet. I want to make sure I'm not just talking to myself and you all are in fact still there. So if you could, just a couple of you type in that you're still there, that would be great, especially ones that don't have paint on their hands. I have the Derwent Inktense pencils over here. These are again water soluble. And I have the Caran d'Ache. These are the aquarelle crayons, which are also helpful because if you want to do watercoloring in your pieces, you can add that. And I have a brayer somewhere, and I have 2 gel plates somewhere, and I have stencils and a feather. So what I'll do is I will start with a sheet that looks like nothing. And I will end up, I make a lot of gratitude tags. So I think that's kind of, it's a very, very small canvas. So there's nothing that can go wrong with it. Thank you so much for telling me you're all still here. I appreciate your taking the time. So I'm just going to, this is cardstock paper. And again, paper doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what your paper is. I also have rice paper here that we can work on. The substrate really doesn't matter. So what I usually end up doing, Diana, you're sweet. She's saying, oh, we're quiet because we're fascinated. You're sweet. So what you can do is you can take a piece of paper. Tearing I find very cathartic because it helps me let go. It helps me let loose. It helps me not deem anything too precious, because tearing is an act of breaking apart something, and it's always hard to do if you have invested time making something to then tear it up. I will give you an example of that. Last week I had a one-on-one session with another person, and I made this beautiful, it was much more gorgeous than this. This is just 3 colors. It was much more gorgeous than this. A pastel sheet back and front. I did both sides, and it was just so pretty, and I was just marveling at how pretty it was. And then I said, you know what, I think I'm getting too attached to this. I think this is becoming too precious. And I folded it and I tore it in half, and the gasp that was uttered right after, and then there was laughter because, you know, I had suddenly done the unthinkable. I had suddenly torn something that I was finding myself in awe of. And I think there is so much courage that goes into doing that. I want you to try that at some point with some sheet of paper that you really are marveling at and are so proud of yourself and you're so happy with. And then I kept tearing, which is what I'm going to show you. So I took that sheet of paper, I tore it, and then I folded it, and it was a sheet of cardstock paper that I was tearing up. And then I tore it one more time, and with rice paper it's much easier. And then I had this stack, and then I folded it. This is just so much fun. Once you do the first tear, it becomes easy. It's like pulling off a Band-Aid. And so suddenly, look what you have here. You have double-sided. So you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. How do I have 7? It should be an even number. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 16. Essentially 16 canvases that you can do whatever with. And this is such a low risk thing to do, because this by itself was doing nothing, right? Now you don't have to work on all 16 of them. You can work on just 2 or 3 and set the others aside as collage material to use in your journal. Or you could work on all 16 of them like I did. And this is what I ended up, this is my 16, and I did both sides. And they're both completely different sides. I did leaves on one, and I did mixed media flowers on the other side. I stuck it together to become like a flip journal. And this, again, was a result of that one-on-one. We were just talking, chatting. I was doing stuff and transforming things. And before you know it, an hour and a half had passed. And now I have this beautiful gift that I can mail her. And it's not like I send gifts to every person I do a one-on-one with, but sometimes it's just nice to be able to share a little token of gratitude and appreciation for spending this time with me like you all are today. So it's, within a matter of minutes, you end up with something that you can actually hand out, gift to someone. So what we'll do is we'll take 3 of these and we'll do completely different techniques on each one of them so I can demonstrate what you could do. This is rice paper again. I'm going to do my favorite thing. You can do your favorite thing. I love making leaves, so that's what I'm going to do. Just make a branch. And there's enough variation of color on this page for it to look dynamic. But if it doesn't, and you just have a blob of teal, for example, and that's what you're working with, I will also show you how you can make it not flat when you are blocking out a focal point. And that's what we're doing right now. What we are trying to do is take something that looks like blah and add some focal imagery to it. Something that is interesting, something that draws the eye, something that feels endearing. And it's, the simplest of things. This is the way I make my branch of leaves. So this is how, it's very, very simple. There's nothing to it. And what I'm going to do is that I'm just going to block everything else out. So what you're wanting to do here is treat everything besides the motif, the focal image. It could be a face, it could be a flower, it could be an animal, it could be a silhouette, it could be a stamp. Any focal image that you have chosen, everything around that, consider that as noise. So what you're doing right now by using white, I'm using my white Stabilo pencil. It's the most used tool in my supply stash because you can see the size of this. Any white pencil, every white pencil ends up like this. It's the fastest one to become short. I like that this is thick. Again, that whole idea of becoming a kid, a 3-year-old. This is what 3-year-olds play with. And I like that. I can play with it too and feel that that boost of self-confidence that 3-year-olds are filled with, because they know everything and they are just supremely confident of their own abilities, and they don't care a hoot what you think. And I think that's what we all need to learn from and channel. So what we are doing is quietening the noise around our focal image. I like using this pencil. You could also use gesso, or you could use white acrylic paint or gouache. to block out the noise so that the only focal point is your image. I always have, this is another tool that I always have next to me, which is a spray bottle. It has water, and these are water soluble pencils. I try these days very hard to not pick up a paintbrush because I feel like we get stuck as soon as we start using specific tools for specific things. And I don't like the feeling of being stuck, because as soon as I pick up the paintbrush, this may not be true for you or for anyone else, in fact, but it's true for me. When I pick up the paintbrush, I feel like I need to be very particular about my painting, because I love watercolors, and you have to be particular in watercolors when you're painting a subject. And so that, I find, is a constraining factor for me. You might have another tool that makes you feel that way. So I avoid that. When I'm doing free play, I avoid picking up a paintbrush because I just feel like I'll get sucked into wanting it to be a certain way. It's not going to be that way, and then I'm going to end up disappointing myself. And when I'm having fun, I'm not thinking about disappointing anyone. So I'm adding a black outline here so that this is very, very prominently the focal image. You can see the white is very subtle. It's still, you can still see the background, but you can also see how this is becoming the only thing that you will pay attention to. And all of these techniques that I'm going to show you today, or I'm talking about, can be used with each other in isolation, or you can add your own favorite technique to it. Now, this is pretty good for now. You know, it's kind of blended out the background. This is what we started with, everything super vibrant. This is kind of a mellowed down version of it. What I also want to do to this now is take my distress crayons, and I like the yellow. Yellow is my favorite color. And I'm going to see if I can maybe just add a hint of yellow to where the greens are. The distress, this one's not working very well. So I'm going to, this is also why I like having multiple options on hand, because sometimes as you start layering things over one another, you might find that they don't work very well together. So I have the Stabilo waxy pencil, and then I tried putting my distress crayon on top of that, and it wasn't showing. And I'm afraid that this paper is going to tear because this is rice paper. So I have to be gentle with it, but at the same time, I don't want to become like, you know, this delicate, handle it with care kind of thing, because then that interrupts my flow. So just be aware that as you're layering things, sometimes some things will work and others will not, but don't think that is a waste of time, because that's how you learn. That's how you understand which mediums work well with each other and which just don't gel along. So you have to experiment. That is the key. And there are so many times when I get asked, do you think this is going to work with this? My answer always is, and I don't mean to say this in a dismissive way, but my answer always is, why don't you try it? Because, I mean, why don't you? That's how we learn. That's how we grow, right? That's how we understand what works and what doesn't work. Now, this defines the focal image, but this by itself does nothing. Again, for me, yes, it has a focal point of interest, but now what? So now I start making my marks. And again, I'm using the Derwent Inktense pencils and doing very simple marks. I used a contrasting color, not because I thought about it being a contrasting color, but because that was the first thing my eye went to, and I picked it up. And the tip broke, so we're just going to work with the tip over here. What I try to do always, encourage you also, is to do an odd number of marks. So have like 1, 3, 5, 7 instead of even. There's no rule to it. It just feels more balanced to me because nature has everything odd numbered. Also, with one color, do one style of mark. So for example, that was like, I think a purple or a magenta. I did the stripes, the lines with it. Now, if I were to pick, say, a red or a vermilion, I would do one mark with it that is a circle, right? So just stick with one shape of your mark. And now I'm picking up my white acrylic pen. This is Storytime Paint Pen by Jane Davenport. And I'm adding dots. And this will lighten it up a bit. Again, it's all random. I'm not placing them in a particular order or a particular place. And now I'm going to do something that you were not expecting, most likely, which is coloring in my leaves. So I really do want these to stand out. The Prismacolor pencil is not working on the rice paper, so I have my aquarelle right here. I might actually end up using a Stabilo if I can find the red one. I'm really gravitating towards a bright red right now. So I don't see my Stabilo red, so we're just going to do this. You could also take acrylic paint and just use your fingers and spread that out over this. Actually, you know what? Let's just do that. Why am I not doing that? So let me find... I know I had red paint over here from earlier this morning because I was finger painting earlier. But then I put all my other stuff here. Okay, I have my gouache here, so I'm just going to use that. So you see what I mean? There are times when I can't find certain things, and so I'll just reach out for other things. But getting this gouache means that now I need to dip my fingers in water. Again, not using a paintbrush. And just kind of see, this is what I wanted. That's the effect I wanted. I wanted these leaves to have that splash of red. And that's mixed media, right? This is suddenly turning into something that is coming to be. It's its own thing. Nothing that I had planned that I would do with you, but here we are. So just adding that bit of red to that, I think helped lift it. And now we can add some yellow over the red, over the acrylic paint. I'm just so nervous about this paper tearing, but you know, if it tears, it just means that this needs to go into my journal as a collage piece. And that is another thing that I would encourage you to think about, is to not worry if something gets messed up or if something gets torn. It's okay. Maybe that's what it was supposed to do that day in that moment. It's okay. It's just paper. It is not the end of the world. This is not going to be in the Smithsonian. This is not going to be hanging up in the president's office, you know. It's just something that I am doing for fun, that you are doing for fun, hopefully. And we're just going to make it work however it wants us to make it work. So again, just scribbling here, not being very particular about what I want from this. I just want it to look substantially different from its surroundings. And I am going to write because I always write. That's kind of part of why I do this, is to get my feelings out on paper through color and through writing. So I'm just going to write how I'm feeling right now. And it doesn't have to be legible. It doesn't have to be the best script ever. It doesn't even have to be complete sentences. It can just be a free flow stream of consciousness kind of writing. And then I would like to take some gold, because gold makes everything awesome. How are we doing so far? Are we feeling good? Is everybody doing okay? I just feel like I'm talking too much and it feels very, very impersonal to me. I know you're all listening, but this is the whole reason why I've started offering Zoom classes, so that we can actually talk to each other and you don't just get talked to by me. And those one-on-ones that I've been having, it's just amazing, the connections that I'm making. I've had people that have been following me for years come on the one-on-one, and we actually get to discuss like the deep stuff and get to know each other and find so many commonalities across countries and time zones and age and lifestyles. It's just been a blessing to be able to do that. So here we added some gold, And because this gold feels like it can be carried farther from the leaves and still not take away from the leaves, but kind of add to it, to the motif. And doing that, I still feel like it needs something very strong. It feels too subtle to me. I'm feeling like it needs something really strong. And I think I usually shy away from black. So I'll do a Payne's gray. I just want this to have some sort of grounding, a little bit of heft. And don't ask me why I feel it needs that. I wouldn't be able to tell you. A trained artist might be able to explain the why better than I can. To me, it just feels like it's floating, and I would like it to be a little bit more grounded, is how I can explain it to you. I want it to feel like it's strong, it's concrete, it's demanding your attention. It's not just this thing floating away. And I sprayed some water because this is a water-soluble pencil that I used, just to soften these lines a little bit. Not too much, just a little bit. And here you have it. So, for comparison's sake, this is what we started out with. This is where we are ending, right? Now, this paper is too flimsy to be used for anything by itself. So what I would do is I would stick this on cardstock. I would tear up the edges to give it a frayed edge look, punch a hole in here, add beautiful ribbon, and put a strip here that says thank you. And that would become a gratitude tag that I can then give to someone. So you see how a sheet of paper that was nothing suddenly became something that you enjoyed transforming. You were immersed in the process. And I can tell you from personal experience and many, many years of experience now, when I give this to someone, this will mean the world to them. Because they don't care about what it looked like or what it emerged from. What they're seeing is that you're acknowledging them, that you're appreciating them, and this is your very tangible way of doing that. Okay, so if any of you have not taken the gratitude tag class, it's on YouTube, it's free, you should definitely look into it. I'm going to get my gel plate to show you what we can do with this one. So everybody has a little something to play with. Okay, so here's my gel plate. You can have whatever size works for you, it doesn't matter. I usually have like a square or a rectangular and then a big rectangular one. Oh, there's my blue paint. And there's my red paint. See, they were hiding from me under the stencils. But what that ended up meaning was that instead of using the red acrylic like I had intended to, I ended up using the red gouache and I finger painted, and I've never done red gouache finger painting. First time I doing it. Worked out just fine. So just go with the flow. Don't get too caught up in, oh, this is what I meant to do and I must have this and I must do this, because there's no other way. There's always another way. Be open-minded, be flexible, be adaptable. It'll all work out. And that is not just something that is true of art. That is true for life. So once you start practicing it with your art, it becomes so much easier to practice that in your life. That's what I'm discovering also as I am doing all of this. So I'm going to take white. This is a golden fluid acrylic titanium white. Again, I don't care for brands. If you have a Liquitex or if you have Walmart craft paint white, totally fine. Just know that the pigmentation in those whites will be different than a more expensive acrylic paint. You can also always use gesso. Gesso is my all-time favorite thing to use for white. So I'm taking this, brayering it on, taking the excess. This is how I end up with so many sheets of paper that I don't know what to do with, is the excess paint being brayered on. So recently I noticed somebody in a group, I think it was a gel plate printing group, using a journal to brayer on, which I think is marvelous because, you know, then you have a journal full of colorful pages. I'm going to use this leaf stencil as a mask, and I'm going to put this rice paper on it. And again, this may turn out to be nothing like what I am envisioning in my head, What I'm envisioning is that everything around the mask is going to be white, and I'll end up with a leaf that is colorful, blue, yellow, and green. Okay, that's what I'm envisioning. That's what I'm hoping will happen. If it doesn't, we are not going to throw a fit. We're not going to get disappointed. We're not going to say, oh my goodness, this is such a waste of paint and paper. What am I going to do now? We're not going to do that, because I'm actually secretly hoping that it doesn't work out so that I can show you. Yes, my secret hope. It didn't work out. So it's kind of a hide and seek. It's a beautiful effect. It's not what I was going for, right? Okay, so what do we do now? So what we do now is we take the white again, and you know why this happened. I will also explain to you why this happened, because I had enough paint, but as I was brayering and looking for my deli sheet to wipe off the excess paint on, the paint dried up, right? So it's okay. We're going to give it a second try. It may or may not work again this time, and if it doesn't, we'll try something else. So just don't stress. Do not stress. I'm going to position the leaf a bit differently this time, just so I can see if it will do anything with this. It will conflict or add, or we'll see. So I'm just positioning it a bit differently. And I'm going to take my deli paper, and I'm going to use my brayer to press down on the rice paper, which is, again, something I haven't done. I haven't printed on rice paper in a while. So we shall see. Okay, this lifted off clean, which means that I had enough wet paint on there for it to lift off cleanly on my deli paper, because the sides of the gel plate are now clean. This, however, crumpled up because this is very, very thin paper, and under the brayer, the pressure just crumpled it up. So again, here is the result of that. It's kind of cool. Still not what I was envisioning. It's not very crisp, the image. Okay, so that's all right. I'm not happy with this. So what can I do? I can do two different things. So to be able to show you the two different things, I'm going to take the third sheet that I had set aside, and we will do another gel plate print. I don't want to forget. So this is over here. This is over here. I'm going to take the third sheet. I will do another gel plate print, and then I will show you what are two things. And I'm sure you will have other ideas as you start exploring and you start letting loose and, you know, just going for it without being afraid of paper and paint and yourself. If you just allow yourself, give yourself permission to fail, you can have so much fun. So do that, please, for your own selves. Give yourselves that permission to fail. Okay, so here we're going to place this one more time. And I'm going to put this, I'll just move the gel plate up so you can see a little bit better. And let's see how gloriously we fail this time. Because it's all part of learning. It really isn't failing. Because, you know, if this hadn't happened and it would have turned out perfect and yours didn't turn out perfect, you would have found it very easy to say, oh, she's been doing it for years, or oh, I don't have the skills, or oh, so she's so talented. None of which are true. So, you know, this, I think we use a lot of that. I know I do. I use a lot of it as an excuse for not pushing through. So if you're saying any of those things to yourself, just know that I say them to myself too, because we're all on this journey at different points. There's always someone who's going to be doing things better, bigger, different, whatever you want to qualify it as, than you. You're not at that same point in that journey with them. So what's the point of beating yourself up about it? Might as well instead have fun. Okay, so see how this is also not as crisp as I would like it to be. Trying to pull a ghost print, which also probably won't pull because A, this is rice paper, B, the paint is probably already dry. Yeah, that didn't pull. This is a beautiful outline to be pulled another time. So I'm setting my gel plate aside. So here, now we have two prints, both of which I don't like. You might love them. So again, to illustrate the point of it's very subjective, and what might be beautiful to you might be ugly to someone else, and vice versa. So one thing you can do is you can take a gray pencil or a dark blue pencil or a brown pencil, any of those colors, to kind of add some dimension to the print that you got. And this could be any stencil. It does not have to be a leaf. It could have been a mandala stencil. It could have been a flower. It could even have been a feather. It could be any mask that you may have used. You can add a shadow, so to speak. Do like an outline with a colored pencil. It doesn't have to be a water-soluble colored pencil. Just be a regular colored pencil. It can be a crayon, just to add some dimension to it so it doesn't feel that flat, and also it kind of adds a little bit more interest, and it's a more immediate focal point than a soft blurry one. And if you like the soft ethereal effect and you'd rather just have that be the background for something that you want to layer on top of this as collage material, sure, you could totally do that. All depends on how you want to get creative with it, what it inspires you to do. So don't just think these are the only ways to transform any of your artwork. These are simply ideas to get you started on the path of discovering what more you can do, finding your way of doing it. And mostly it's going to be a mishmash of stuff. You know, it's not going to be one thing. It's going to be a combination of things that you are seeing, that you have experienced, that you prefer. It's always going to be that. It's never just one thing. It's never just that one experience. It's always a combination of things is what I end up doing. I find this to be so much more powerful than this. I don't know if you do, but for me, this is like an instant focal image. For me, this is more like my eye is wandering around. I would prefer it to be an instant focal image, which is why I'm doing this. So I'm just going to keep adding the gray. Now what I'm doing now is I did the first outline a bit darker. Now what I'm doing is I'm just using my pencil very, very lightly. It's almost a feather touch to kind of make it look like it's resting on a surface and there's a bit of a shadow to it, very lightly, right? Okay, and then I do some journaling on it with I think I want to do it, I want to add some color to it in my journaling, but I don't want it to be overdoing it. So I'm just going to use this gray. It's a slate gray. This is the Prismacolor wax pencil, and I'm going to write out some thoughts over here. This is my style of doing things. This is what makes it mine, I guess. You know, journaling while I'm doing this because it makes it somewhat meaningful to me. You absolutely don't have to do it. Hi, Janet. Getting ready for a mix of snow, sleet, and then rain. Oh my goodness. Stay warm. Stay indoors. I picked up the orange because it felt really bright and it was sitting to my right. And again, you'll notice I gravitate towards the same marks. It's nothing fancy. It's nothing you cannot do. It's nothing anybody can. Everybody can do this. It's just a matter of finding what speaks to you, what feels natural to you, what does not feel forced, what does not feel like it's somebody else's and you're copying it. I want you to own it. I want you to feel like, yes, this is, and nobody has ownership of these marks. Really, you know. I had one person tell me once that I didn't invent the hashtag. So I cannot use it. She didn't know who invented the hashtag. I actually know the person in real life who invented the hashtag. So I could have come back with a retort saying, I actually know the person who invented the hashtag, and so I have permission from him to use it. Anyway, point is, there are a million marks. You can make up your own. You can use whatever marks speak to you. Don't let anybody ever tell you that that's their mark and you cannot use it. Don't let yourself tell you that. There are marks that are proprietorship or owned by anyone. It's just marks. It's whatever speaks to you, right? And I'm adding yellow. Why? Because there's a bright spot of yellow over here from the background. I want to honor that because all of that yellow went away in the white from the gel plate printing. And what I'm feeling like, so this is getting very, very warm. And I'm feeling like the coolness is coming from the gray over here with the shadow. It's a very powerful, strong focal image. But to me, it feels like it's lacking some pure white. So how do I get that pure white? I get that by using my acrylic pen or a white Sharpie or just white gesso, and you can dip your paintbrush. And I love making dots. So I'm just going to do this middle part, the spine, with white dots. It's nothing too stark. It's not in your face, but you'll see how it kind of marries the focal image with the background with just that hint of white, the white dots going through, right? Another thing you can do with this piece that I did not do with this one is to give it a nice kind of vignette. And what you can do for that is, I love my distress crayons. This is the antique bronze. And I'll usually just kind of go on the sides like this, just kind of edge it. And it'll give a nice like subtle sheen. I like using bold, like not bold, but very subtle, the opposite of bold. Very subtle metallic colors. I usually gravitate towards gold, but I like the bronze for this one. It's just softer, it's a bit more mellow. It's not too dramatic. Gold sometimes becomes too dramatic. Bronze is just mellow. So here, and then contrast, right? So many different techniques, completely different effect, right? Okay, so now for this one, how about we use some washi tape? Let's do a bit of collaging in this one. So I have these washi tapes that I tear up. This is script. You can also do some stamping. I think stamping would be really cool in something like this. So this is like your mixed media piece with collaging thrown into the mix. And again, I'm not following the direction of the script, even though this is a scripted washi tape. I might add something with gold in it. I really like these botanicals. This one also has words that are more prominent. I will return, find you, love you, marry you, and live without shame. This one says. Isn't that funny? So I don't want all of it because I am not going to return and find you and love you and marry you without any shame. I will just use, I will return, find you, and love you in my collage. I think this one is a self-adhesive. I hate glue. I don't know how many of you know that. I actually have a couple of people that are joining the mixed media class, the Zoom session next week, who have asked me to use glue. I think, Leslie, you're one of them who uses glue. You don't mind getting your hands messy. I don't mind getting my hands messy. I just don't like dealing with glue. And I'm going to rip this Mary bit out so I can use this bit of gold up there. And again, this is willy-nilly. You can see I'm not planning. I don't have a grid. I am not thinking, oh, 1/3 or rule of whatever. I'm just kind of sticking it wherever. We'll come back to designing it if we ever will. I don't know. But just take out the rules. You know, you don't, just take them out. Don't go by rules. Just make it as free flow as you can, and you'll see how it transforms how you think and how you go about your art. Now I have this stencil. This is from earlier this morning from my one-on-one. So when that lady said that she buys stencils and she doesn't use them, I said, let's just go pick 2 stencils. You pick 2, I'll pick 2, and we'll just pick whichever 2. Close your eyes, don't think about it. These 2 fell down as I was getting them out. So I had the grid lines, this one, this whole thing just fell down. So this is what I ended up using. So you know, make it simple, simplify it for yourself. You don't have to get stuck up in, oh, will this stencil go with this particular leaf motif? Will this go with these colors? I already have some washi tape on that. Will it gel with it? You know what? It'll all work out. It will all work out. Just don't think. Forget overthinking, just don't think. So you see, I'm just outlining, and this is just a regular pencil. This is not even a washable marker or anything. Just a regular pencil. I did full circles over here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and I did half. So again, in odds. I wasn't counting, it's just something I gravitate towards. So we have that. And now we've already got white, we've got some washi tape, we've got some marks here. How do we transform this to look nothing like what we've done earlier? So what I would like to do is take a dark green distress crayon. And again, for all of these, the common thing is delineating your focal image from your background. And there are so many ways of doing that. So choose what feels uncomfortable to you and do that first. Because if you always just keep doing what feels, you know, in your comfort zone, you're not going to try new things. I've never done this before. I'll just say that. I've never done any of this before. I've never used distress crayons along with washi tape and a botanical gel print on rice paper to create what I'm creating right in this moment. And I don't know if it will work, which is why I'm doing it. Because if I don't know if it will work and I mess up, so to speak, then we'll see how to recover from it, right? Because really, what's going to go wrong? It's going to look ugly? Well, it wasn't looking like anything earlier either, so you have nothing to lose. But I think I actually quite like this because this is making one side dark. And I like how subtle this is. It's not like the Derwent Inktense colored pencils. It's very smooth to just rub with my fingers. And if it gets too dark at any point, I can rein it in with a lighter color. Ooh, I like this. It's got a nice grungy effect to it, but with some sheen. I really like it. And I like the monotone in this too. Like with the others, I was feeling compelled to add a pop of color with the red and the orange. With this one, it just feels like, it feels more natural for it to just be like this. I don't know, is it done? It almost feels like it needs a little bit of gold, and then it will be done. I don't feel like it needs anything more. And that's the thing. A lot of people ask me when I know something is done. So when I know something is done is when I look at it and I don't feel like I can add or I can delete. I feel like it's just fine as is. I'm gravitating towards putting some gold in these circles from the stencil. And I will marry that gold effect with my standard dots on the sides here. Oh my gosh, actually, I think this is my favorite one of the three. And this was the simplest probably too, because there really wasn't much to it. There's just some washi tape with gold. There are some circles. There's a very grungy, ethereal effect. You still see this as the focal image, even though there's a lot going on around it. It doesn't feel like chaos. Compare it to this. Compare it to this, right? So if you're all just looking up for a second from your computers, you can see how these two are the same stencil. We started out with a gel plate, and yet they look very different. They have a very different vibe to them. And yet they work. And this one is completely different. This is just a sketch blocking out the noise, right? So three very different ways of transforming shreds from one sheet of paper. It's 12:54. I'm going to open it up to questions so that in the next 5 minutes, if you have any burning questions, you can ask me. If there's any information you would like, you can ask me about that. Any classes you want to take, any free demos you would want me to do more of, because now I have access to my studio, I have access to my supplies, I am here and raring to go. I am more than happy to do more lives if people are interested in attending them. I have also contemplated doing an open house, maybe once every 2 weeks or once a month, depending on the interest, where you can just come chat for an hour, hang out, do whatever, have specific questions you want to ask. This is all the free stuff. And then if you want to pay for my time and just chat and create and talk about deeper things, we can do that one-on-one, or you're very welcome to come to the Zoom classes that I'm opening up slowly. I have 2 coming up next week, and all the links, I will send them out in the newsletter. They're also under this video. But if you have any questions, I am happy to answer those questions right now. I will continue making some more of these because I still have a lot of brayer sheets to work on. But now you know at least a little bit of how you can take something that basically is a whole lot of nothing and you can turn it into something more tangible. It doesn't always have to be gratitude tags. I did show some examples yesterday in the preview. I will show you one more over here. This is a zine that I had made. Let me switch the camera one more time so you can have a look at it. This is, again, this was from resulted from a one-on-one. It went very dark. We talked a lot about a lot of issues in life, and both she and I were going through some difficult times. This ended up being a very, very dark. This was on watercolor paper. Ended up being a very dark, and you can tell how dark it was from the inside of the leaves, the colors on the inside of the leaves. It's very, very dark. And this is the Stabilo pencil all around, the white, to kind of tone it down, to calm it down. But this went to a very dark place, and look what came out of it though. And it was just so many tears. There were so many tears during this session, during this one-on-one. And I feel like it was cathartic. It was very, very moving. It was very empowering to both of us to be able to do this from one sheet of paper. I'll open this up so you can see. It was one sheet of paper that was very, very dark, that turned into a zine. And then I gave it a belly band that said hope, because that's really how I felt at the end of that session for myself, was hopeful. I felt very, very hopeful. And so I created this belly band to remind me. And this I did not send to her because I wanted to keep this for me as a memory that these one-on-one sessions, they are so helpful and so cathartic and so meaningful. And art is just almost an excuse for us to connect as human beings with each other. So I really hope, and I'm not saying this that you should do this with me. I'm hoping that you will do it with another friend, with someone you know, with someone you can do art with. If that person happens to be me, I'll be honored and grateful that you chose to spend your time with me. But just go and do it. That's really all it comes down to. Just do something with your hands. You always have these fingers. Use them, spread the paint around, feel it. Feel the texture of the paper, because when you are so intrinsically attached to that paper and you're letting out your emotions through that paint as you spread that on that substrate, it's a very different energy flow than if you're using a paintbrush or you're using a scraper or any other tool or a spatula. I love that you're saying all these kind things in the chat. Alicia is saying, your process is always amazing to me. I pulled out my tags that I first made with you in a class and shared with some friends last week. Thank you. She's referring to the Maker Forte class that I had done, where I had made these portraits of women with personalities. And we'd also done another mixed media piece with leaves, which are my favorite motif. Joan is saying, you make me feel brave. I cannot wait to use up some of those unused. Whatever will I do with them, gel prints? Diana says, I've already pulled out some of my old papers to do something with. Yes, that's what I was hoping that this session will empower you to do, is to feel brave. You have nothing to lose. These papers were already kind of done with, right? And here you are using them to make something that is taking you down a journey too, right? It's not so much about the end product. Yes, this looks great. Fantastic. But the joy of doing it one-on-one with you right now in this live, explaining my process to you, sharing this journey, and seeing how it evolves, that's where the real magic lies. So I encourage you to keep doing that with your friends, with people in your community, with your family members, especially with the young ones. If you have grandchildren or children that will do this with you, it just encourages them to be one with themselves, to be okay with whatever life throws at them. And there's just so much value in learning that through art, because it really sets you up for success in life, because you start seeing success and failure through a very different lens. So I hope this was valuable. And please let me know, email me, text me, message me on whichever social media platform you are, what you would like to see more of. I'm really happy to share. I am over the moon that there are so many of you that want these videos, that want these one-on-ones, that want these Zoom classes, that want these lives. It's just, I'm so grateful for every single one of you. So thank you so much for supporting me, for being part of my journey, for sharing your journey with me, and just making this world a kinder place, because God knows we all can do with it. I say God knows, I don't believe in God, but you get the drift. You know, we could all do with some more empathy and with some more kindness and just being one with ourselves and being at peace. And I feel like art brings a lot of that to me. So hopefully it does to you too. I do not understand French. I see merci beaucoup, which means thank you. Pour votre... So I think it's saying thank you for the live. It's very interesting. Your creations are magnificent. Bravo, bravo. I hope I translated that correctly. I know a little bit of French, not too much. But yes, thank you so much for being here. Thank you, Teresa. I really appreciate each and every one of you that supports me just by being here. It means a lot. So thank you. And I would love to see what you've made. So if you're part of Mansi Makes With You, the Facebook group, please post your before and after. Please post, just share how this process made you feel. If you were just watching and didn't create anything, if you just want to share how the conversation made you feel, I would appreciate that. And I think what it does is when you share something like this, when you share your personal journey and how it helped you, it encourages other people who were not able to make it to the live today to be brave. It just shows them, because, you know, there's a lot of times, a lot of us have these hang-ups. I do too. When I see another artist who is more accomplished than I am in many other different ways, I have this hiccup and I think, oh yeah, of course she did this, because I'm happy to post my work. And I know a lot of people think, oh yeah, she did this, she can do this, I cannot do this. But when you share it, it's just so much more empowering, because you are part of that encouraging community, and it shows that everybody can do it. It's not a special talent that I have. You have it. And so please, I hope, I don't want to force anyone, but I hope that you will share what you're making in the Facebook group Mansi Makes With You, or wherever you want to share. If you don't want to share it publicly, email it to me so that I can continue to feel encouraged. All right, enough of rambling. It's 1:03. I gotta go wash my hands, clean up my table, and do mom stuff. So happy Friday. Thank you again for being here. If there's any questions, just email me, info@mansimakes.com, or message me on any social media platform. I'm happy to answer. Thank you again for being here. Have a wonderful weekend. Stay warm, stay dry, and just continue doing what you're doing and have fun. All right, bye-bye.